The keys were in my hand. The moving truck was in the driveway. My husband and I had just bought our first house together after years of saving and dreaming. It was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives. Until my mother-in-law pulled up behind the moving truck with her suitcases already packed. She didn't ask. She didn't call. She just walked up to the front door, handed me a set of keys I never gave her, and said, "I've decided to move in with you. Don't worry, I won't be in the way." I stood there frozen, my mouth open, unable to form words. My husband, Mark, stood beside me, his face pale, caught between his mother and his wife. But what my mother-in-law didn't know was that I had already made a call. My father was on his way. And he was bringing something that would change everything. Something that would expose the truth about why my mother-in-law really wanted to move in. And by the time the sun set, she would be the one leaving in tears, while I stood in my new home with my husband and a truth she would never see coming. My name is Rachel, and I'm 32 years old. I'm a high school English teacher, a woman who's spent her life believing in the power of words and the importance of family. I met Mark 5 years ago at a mutual friend's party. He was handsome, kind, and completely swept me off my feet. We started dating, fell in love, and within 2 years, he'd proposed. I said yes without hesitation. His mother, Eleanor, never approved of me. She'd made that clear from the beginning. She wanted Mark to marry someone from their world, someone with a trust fund and a pedigree. I was neither. My parents were working class. I'd paid my own way through college. I worked with my hands, teaching children to love literature. To Eleanor, I was a phase, a mistake her son would eventually outgrow. She never said it directly, of course. She was too elegant for that. She'd make small comments, subtle digs, always delivered with a smile. "Oh, Rachel, what a unique career choice. Mark always did have expensive taste. I'm sure your students are very grateful." I swallowed it all. I smiled. I nodded. I pretended I didn't hear what she really meant. But I heard. And I remembered. The engagement was the beginning of the war. Eleanor insisted on being involved in every detail. She wanted to choose the venue, the flowers, the caterer. She wanted to control the guest list. She wanted to plan the entire wedding. Mark, caught between his mother and his fiancée, tried to keep the peace. "She's just excited," he'd say. "Let her have this. It'll make her happy." But nothing made Eleanor happy. She wanted me gone. She'd made that clear. She'd even told Mark, in a voice she thought I couldn't hear, "You're making a mistake. She's not right for you." Mark told me about it later, his face red with embarrassment. I told him it was fine. I told him I understood. But I didn't. I couldn't understand why a mother would be so cruel. Why she'd want to sabotage her own son's happiness. I didn't know it yet, but I was about to find out. Eleanor had a plan. And it was far more elaborate than I'd ever imagined. Eleanor started by undermining me in small ways. She'd forget to invite my family to important meetings. She'd accidentally order the wrong color flowers. She'd misplace my notes and then offer to help me reschedule. It was death by 1,000 cuts, each one delivered with a smile. I was exhausted, stressed, and starting to doubt myself. Maybe she was right. Maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe I didn't deserve Mark. But then I'd look at him, at the way he looked at me, and I'd remember why I was doing this. I loved him. And I wasn't going to let his mother ruin that. The house was supposed to be a fresh start. A new beginning for our family. We'd spent months searching for the perfect house, saving every penny, making every sacrifice. And finally, we'd found it. A beautiful 3-bedroom home with a big backyard and a kitchen that was perfect for entertaining. It was everything we'd ever dreamed of. We signed the papers, got the keys, and started planning our move. I had no idea that Eleanor had already been scheming behind my back. The house was perfect. It was a modest but beautiful 3-bedroom home with a white picket fence and a wraparound porch. The kitchen had granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. The backyard was big enough for a garden and a swing set for the children we hoped to have someday. It was the kind of house I'd always dreamed of owning. Mark and I had worked so hard to make it happen. We'd saved for years, cut corners, made sacrifices. And finally, it was ours. The day we got the keys, we stood in the empty living room, holding hands, and I felt a surge of hope for the future. It was the beginning of something new, something beautiful. I had no idea that Eleanor had already begun plotting to take it from us. She'd been jealous of our happiness, resentful of our success. She'd spent years trying to control Mark, and she wasn't about to let me take that away from her. Eleanor had always been possessive of Mark. She'd raised him alone after his father died, and she'd never let him forget it. She'd sacrificed everything for him, or so she said. She'd given up her dreams, her career, her youth. And she never let him forget it. She'd call at all hours, demanding his attention. She'd drop by unannounced, expecting to be entertained. She'd criticize my cooking, my cleaning, my parenting. She'd remind Mark that I would never love him the way she did. And Mark, my sweet, loving husband, would let her. He'd apologize, make excuses, smooth things over. He'd tell me she was just lonely, that she'd been through so much, that I needed to be patient. I tried. God knows I tried. I let her into our home, our marriage, our lives. I let her take and take and take. And I never complained because I loved him. I thought love could conquer anything. I was wrong. Moving day arrived sunny and warm. Mark and I were up before dawn, packing the last of our boxes and loading them into the truck. It was a lot of work, but it was exciting. We were finally moving into our new home. We'd been planning this day for months. I'd taken the week off work, and Mark had arranged for a moving company to help us. Everything was going smoothly. We were almost done when I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. I looked up, expecting to see the moving truck. But it wasn't the moving truck. It was Eleanor. She was driving her old sedan, and the back seat was piled high with suitcases. I felt my stomach drop. I knew something was wrong. I knew she was up to something. And I was right. Eleanor parked the car and got out, a triumphant smile on her face. She walked up to us, her arms open as if she were expecting a hug. "Surprise," she said. "I've decided to move in with you. Don't worry, I won't be in the way." I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I just stood there, frozen, staring at her. Mark, my husband, the man I loved, was just as shocked as I was. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. He was paralyzed, caught between his mother and his wife. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know what to do. But I did. I'd been preparing for this moment for years. I'd known Eleanor would try something like this. She was desperate to keep control of Mark, and she saw the new house as a threat. She wanted to insert herself into our lives, to make sure we never had any privacy. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I stepped forward, my voice calm but firm. "Eleanor," I said. "You can't just move in without asking. This is our house. Our home. You need to respect that." Eleanor's smile faltered. "I'm his mother," she said. "I have a right to be here. I've done so much for him. He owes me." "He doesn't owe you anything," I said. "And you're not moving in." Eleanor's face turned red. "You can't stop me," she said. "This is my son's house, and I'm going to live here whether you like it or not." I felt a surge of anger. I was about to respond when I heard another car pull up behind Eleanor's. I looked up and saw my father's truck. He was here. And he was carrying a manila envelope. My father, Frank, is a retired construction worker. He's a quiet man, not one for drama or confrontation. But when it comes to protecting his family, he's fearless. He stepped out of his truck, his eyes fixed on Eleanor. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his voice calm but stern. Eleanor's face went pale. She hadn't expected my father to be there. She'd thought she could bully me into submission. But she was wrong. "Everything's fine, Frank," Eleanor said, her voice shaky. "I'm just moving in with my son." My father didn't respond to her. He looked at me, his eyes asking the question. I nodded. "She showed up uninvited," I said. "With all her suitcases." My father nodded slowly. Then he turned to Eleanor, his face hard. "You need to leave," he said. "This is my daughter's house. You have no right to be here." Eleanor's face went red. "You can't tell me what to do," she said. "This is my son's house. I have every right to be here." My father reached into his pocket and pulled out a manila envelope. "I don't think so," he said. "I think you need to see this." He opened the envelope and pulled out a document. "This is the deed to the house," he said. "It's in my daughter's name. Only in her name." Eleanor's face went white. "That's not possible," she whispered. "Mark is her husband. He has to be on the deed." "He's not," my father said. "Rachel bought this house with her own money. Her own savings. It's hers. And she gets to decide who lives here." Eleanor opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. She was defeated. She knew she had no rights. And she knew she'd been outsmarted. "I'll call my lawyer," she finally said. "This isn't over." My father shook his head. "You do that," he said. "But in the meantime, you need to leave. Now." Eleanor grabbed her keys and got back in her car. She didn't look back. She just drove away, leaving us standing in the driveway, alone. I stood in the driveway, watching Eleanor's car disappear down the road. My hands were trembling, but I felt a strange sense of relief. I'd stood up to her. I'd won. Mark came up behind me and put his arms around me. "I'm sorry," he said. I should have stopped her. I should have said something. "It's okay," I said. "You're not the one who should be apologizing." My father walked over to us, his face softer now. "I'm proud of you, Rachel," he said. "You handled that well." I hugged him. "Thank you," I said. "For coming. For bringing the deed." "I keep copies of everything important," he said. "I knew you might need it someday." We stood there for a moment, the three of us, looking at our new house. It was still beautiful. Still ours. And now, finally, we could start our new life. Agar abn bi kabi apni gar main jishi na kwahish maiman kasamna kia ho. To ubi channel subscribe carrion or comments main apna experience share carrion. Hyunk jo agli cheese hon wali ti, asan sabki hosh yura dai. The moving truck finally arrived, and we spent the rest of the day unloading boxes and arranging furniture. It was exhausting, but it was also therapeutic. We were building our home. Our sanctuary. No one could take that away from us. That night, we sat on the porch, watching the sunset. Mark took my hand and squeezed it. "I'm sorry I didn't stand up to her sooner," he said. "I'm sorry for everything." "It's not your fault," I said. "She's your mother. You love her. It's hard to see someone you love do something terrible." Mark nodded. "I know," he said. "But I'm done making excuses for her. She crossed a line." I leaned my head on his shoulder. "We'll be okay," I said. "We're stronger than her." But I knew the battle wasn't over. Eleanor was stubborn. She wouldn't give up easily. And I knew she'd be back. A few days later, Eleanor called Mark. I could hear his side of the conversation, his voice getting more agitated. Finally, he hung up the phone, his face pale. "What happened?" I asked. "She's threatening to sue," he said. "She says she's going to take us to court. She says she's going to claim that the house is a family asset." I laughed. "Let her try," I said. "The deed is in my name. She doesn't have a leg to stand on." Mark shook his head. "You don't understand," he said. "She's been talking to a lawyer. She's going to claim that I was coerced into signing away my rights. She's going to try to prove that I was under duress." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "That's ridiculous," I said. "No one coerced you. You signed the deed willingly." "I know," Mark said. "But she's going to try to spin it. She's going to make it look like you manipulated me. She's going to make it look like I'm a victim." I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. I knew Eleanor was capable of anything. She was desperate. And desperate people do terrible things. I decided to fight back. I called my father and told him what was happening. He listened carefully, then said, "Don't worry. I'll handle it." A few days later, he called me back. "I've found a way to stop her," he said. "I've been doing some digging. I found out that Eleanor has been hiding assets from the IRS. I've got proof." I was shocked. "How did you find that out?" I asked. "I have my ways," he said. "Let's just say I know people." I felt a surge of hope. My father had found a way to stop Eleanor. She'd been trying to destroy us, but she'd been hiding her own secrets. And now, we had the upper hand. We decided to confront Eleanor directly. We called her and asked her to come to our house. She arrived with her lawyer, a sharp-looking woman in a power suit. She was clearly expecting to win. She was expecting us to back down. But we didn't. My father was there, along with his lawyer. The two of them presented Eleanor with the evidence of her tax fraud. Her face went pale. She was caught off guard. She didn't know what to say. "This is blackmail," she finally said. "It's not blackmail," my father said. "It's leverage. You've been threatening us. Now, we have leverage over you." Eleanor's lawyer leaned in and whispered something to her. She nodded, her face grim. "What do you want?" she asked. "We want you to leave us alone," I said. "We want you to stop trying to control our lives." Eleanor was silent for a moment. Then she nodded. "Fine," she said. "You win." She got up and walked out of the house, her lawyer following behind her. I felt a wave of relief. It was over. We'd won. The weeks that followed were peaceful. Eleanor stayed away. She didn't call. She didn't visit. I started to think that maybe, just maybe, the nightmare was finally over. But I was wrong. Eleanor was just biding her time, waiting for the right moment to strike. I knew she'd be back. And I knew I'd have to be ready. Several months passed, and life settled into a routine. Mark and I were happy. We'd finally found peace. But one day, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Eleanor's lawyer. I opened it with trembling hands, my heart pounding. Inside was a document that made my blood run cold. It was a petition for grandparents' rights. Eleanor was suing us for visitation with our unborn child. I was pregnant, just a few months along. And Eleanor was trying to use my baby to get back at us. I felt a surge of anger. How dare she? How dare she use my child as a pawn in her sick game? I showed the letter to Mark. He was as furious as I was. "This is insane," he said. "She can't do this." "She can try," I said. "But we're not going to let her win." We contacted a lawyer and started preparing our defense. We knew it was going to be a long, hard fight. But we were ready. We were determined to protect our family. My father was our rock. He stood by us, supporting us, encouraging us. "You're stronger than you think," he said. "You've already beaten her once. You'll beat her again." His words gave me strength. And I knew I'd need it. Because Eleanor wasn't going to give up easily. She was desperate. And desperate people do terrible things. I sat in the courtroom, my hand resting on my belly. Mark was beside me, his face tight with worry. We were waiting for the judge to enter. The hearing had finally arrived. Eleanor was sitting across the room, her lawyer beside her. She looked calm, confident. But I knew she was scared. She knew she was fighting a losing battle. The judge entered, and the hearing began. Eleanor's lawyer argued that Eleanor had a right to see her grandchild, that it was in the child's best interest. But our lawyer argued that Eleanor was toxic, that she'd been abusive and manipulative. I was called to the stand. I told the judge everything. The years of abuse, the attempts to control us, the threats. I told him about the night Eleanor had tried to move in, about the blackmail, about everything. The judge listened carefully. Then he asked Eleanor to speak. She stood up, her voice shaking. "I just want to see my grandchild," she said. "I just want to be a part of their life." The judge shook his head. "Ms. Eleanor, I've heard enough. Your behavior has been appalling. You've been abusive, manipulative, and controlling. You've shown no respect for your son's marriage. And you've tried to use your grandchild as a weapon. I'm denying your petition." I felt a surge of relief. It was over. We'd won. Agar abn bikabi apni gar main jishi na kwahish maiman kasamna kia ho. To ubi channel subscribe carrion or comments main apna experience share carrion. Hyunk jo agli cheese hon wali ti, asan sabki hosh yura dai. We walked out of the courtroom, hand in hand. My father was waiting for us, a smile on his face. "I'm proud of you," he said. "Both of you." I hugged him, tears streaming down my face. "We couldn't have done it without you," I said. "Thank you." My father nodded. "That's what family is for," he said. "We look out for each other." I looked back at the courthouse, at the woman who'd tried to destroy us. She was standing alone, her face a mask of defeat. I didn't feel sorry for her. She'd brought this on herself. She'd chosen to be cruel and manipulative. And now she was paying the price. I turned and walked away, my family beside me. We were free. Finally free. The weeks following the court case were quiet. Eleanor had finally backed down. She'd realized she couldn't win, and she'd slunk away, licking her wounds. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt exhausted. The battle had taken everything out of me. But I also felt a sense of peace. It was finally over. We could finally start our lives. Mark and I focused on preparing for the baby. We painted the nursery, bought furniture, and spent hours picking out names. It was a joyful time, a time of hope and anticipation. We'd been through so much, but we'd come out the other side. And we were ready for the next chapter. My father was a constant presence in our lives. He'd come over for dinner, help with house projects, and offer advice. He was the rock we'd needed. The father I'd always known he could be. I was grateful for him. So incredibly grateful. I thought about Eleanor sometimes, about the woman she could have been. I wondered if she'd ever regret her choices, if she'd ever realize how much she'd lost. But I knew it didn't matter. She'd made her bed. And now she'd have to lie in it. We were moving on. We were building a life full of love and joy. And Eleanor wasn't a part of it. Our daughter, Lily, was born on a warm summer morning. She was perfect. 10 tiny fingers, 10 tiny toes, and a cry that filled the room. I held her in my arms and felt a surge of love so powerful it took my breath away. Mark was crying, his face streaked with tears of joy. "She's beautiful," he whispered. She's perfect. I looked at my daughter, at the life we'd created together, and I knew that everything we'd been through had been worth it. Every fight, every tear, every moment of doubt had led to this. To her. To our family. Lily was the light of our lives. We spent every moment with her, watching her grow, learning her little quirks. She had her father's eyes and my smile. She was the best of both of us. And we were determined to give her the life she deserved. We thought about the future, about all the possibilities. We wanted to give Lily everything we'd never had. A stable home, a loving family, a childhood full of joy. We wanted to break the cycle of abuse, to show her what true love looked like. And we were determined to succeed. Lily brought us so much joy. She was a reminder of why we'd fought so hard. And she was a reminder that love always wins. I looked at her sometimes and wondered what Eleanor would have thought. Would she have loved her granddaughter, or would she have tried to poison her with her toxic words? I was glad I'd never have to find out. Lily was safe. She was loved. And she would never know the pain of rejection. Healing was a slow, gentle process. It didn't happen overnight. It took time, patience, and a lot of love. I started going to therapy to deal with the trauma of the past few years. I needed to process everything, to let go of the anger and resentment. My therapist helped me understand that I wasn't to blame. I'd been a victim of emotional abuse, and I'd done nothing wrong. I learned to forgive myself. I learned to move on. Mark went to therapy too. He needed to deal with his own feelings of guilt and shame. He'd let his mother control him for too long, and he needed to break free from that cycle. He learned to set boundaries, to stand up for himself, and to put his family first. It was a long road, but we walked it together. We also started couples therapy. We needed to rebuild our trust, to strengthen our bond. We talked about everything. The past, the future, our fears and hopes. We learned to communicate better, to listen to each other, to support each other. We came out stronger than ever. The therapy was a gift. It gave us the tools we needed to build a healthy, happy marriage. We were no longer the people we'd been before. We'd grown, evolved, become better versions of ourselves. And we were grateful for that. I started a support group for other women who'd been through similar experiences. I'd been so alone during my own struggle. I didn't want anyone else to feel that way. We met once a week, sharing our stories, offering support and encouragement. It was amazing to see the strength in those women. They'd been through so much, but they were still standing. They were still fighting. I was honored to be part of their journey. I also started writing a blog, sharing my story and offering advice. I wanted to reach as many people as possible. I wanted to let them know that they weren't alone. There was a way out. There was hope. The blog became popular, and I was invited to speak at conferences and events. I shared my story, my struggles, and my triumphs. I encouraged others to speak up, to set boundaries, to protect themselves. I was amazed by the response. People from all over the world reached out to me, sharing their own stories of betrayal and healing. I realized that I'd found my purpose. I was meant to help others. I was meant to be a voice for the voiceless. And I was grateful for that. Years passed, and life settled into a beautiful rhythm. Lily grew into a bright, curious child. Mark and I built a successful business together. We were happy. We were finally living the life we'd always dreamed of. I thought about Eleanor sometimes, about the woman she could have been. I felt sorry for her. She'd been so consumed by her need for control that she'd pushed away the people who loved her. She'd missed out on so much. On her son's happiness. On her granddaughter's love. She'd died alone, bitter and angry. I'd made peace with her before she passed. I'd visited her in the hospital, a few weeks before she died. I'd forgiven her. Not for her. For me. I'd let go of the anger and the hurt. I'd moved on. And I'd built a life that was full of love and purpose. I thought about the journey I'd been on. The struggles, the triumphs, the growth. I was proud of who I'd become. I was proud of the life I'd built. I was grateful for every single moment. I sat on the porch, watching the sunset. Mark came out and sat beside me, his arm around my shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Everything," I said. "How far we've come." He nodded. "We've been through a lot," he said. "But we made it." "We did," I said. "And we're stronger because of it." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun dip below the horizon. It was a perfect moment. A moment I'd never take for granted. I started a foundation to help families dealing with toxic in-laws. I knew I wasn't the only one who'd been through this. There were so many people out there struggling with boundaries, feeling trapped and helpless. I wanted to be a resource for them. I worked with therapists and lawyers to create a comprehensive program that provided support and guidance. We offered workshops, counseling, and legal advice. We wanted to give people the tools they needed to fight back. The foundation was a huge success. We helped hundreds of families reclaim their lives. It was the most fulfilling work I'd ever done. I was making a real difference in the world. I also started writing a book about my experience. I wanted to share my story with the world. I wanted to help people who were going through similar situations. I wanted to let them know that they weren't alone. I spent hours at my desk, pouring my heart out onto the page. It was therapeutic. It helped me process my emotions and make sense of everything that had happened. The book became a bestseller, and I was invited to speak at conferences and events. I was amazed by the response. People from all over the world reached out to me, sharing their own stories of betrayal and healing. I realized that I'd found my purpose. I was meant to help others. I was meant to be a voice for the voiceless. And I was grateful for that. I look back now at everything that happened. The house, the mother-in-law, the court case. It's all part of my story now. And I'm grateful for it. Because it made me who I am. It taught me about strength. It taught me about resilience. And it taught me that sometimes, the people who hurt us the most are the ones who need our forgiveness the most. I found my voice. I fought for my truth. And I refused to be broken. I've always believed that love is worth fighting for. But I also know that sometimes, love means walking away. It means setting boundaries. It means protecting yourself. I've learned to trust my instincts, to listen to my gut, and to never let anyone make me feel small again. Mark and I have been married for 10 years now. We have a beautiful life together. We've weathered every storm, every challenge, every obstacle. And we're stronger because of it. I know now that I can handle anything. I'm a survivor. And I'll never stop fighting for what's right. I remember the moment I saw my father's truck pull into the driveway. I remember the fear and the relief, the certainty that everything was going to be okay. I remember the look on Eleanor's face when she realized she'd been outsmarted. I remember the court case, the victory, the freedom. I was finally free. I was finally in control. I was finally my own person. And I've never looked back. I continued to grow as a person. I started a podcast, interviewing other survivors of family abuse. I wanted to amplify their voices, to share their stories with the world. It was powerful, listening to their experiences, their struggles, their triumphs. I learned so much from them. They taught me about the incredible strength of the human spirit. They taught me that no matter how dark things get, there's always a way forward. They taught me that we're all capable of more than we ever imagined. I also started teaching workshops on setting boundaries and protecting yourself from toxic people. I wanted to give people the tools they needed to protect themselves. It was incredibly rewarding to see people transform their lives. They went from feeling helpless and trapped to feeling empowered and in control. I was proud of the work I was doing. I was making a real difference in the world. I thought about Eleanor sometimes, about the woman she could have been. I wondered if she'd ever regretted her choices. I wondered if she'd ever understood how much she'd lost. I hoped she had. I hoped she'd found peace in her final days. I'd learned to let go of the anger. I'd learned to forgive. And I'd moved on. I'd built a life that was full of love and purpose. I'd found my voice. And I'd used it to help others. And that was the greatest gift of all. I look back now at everything that happened. The house, the mother-in-law, the court case. It's all part of my story now. And I'm grateful for it. Because it made me who I am. It taught me about strength. It taught me about resilience. And it taught me that sometimes, the people who hurt us the most are the ones who need our forgiveness the most. I found my voice. I fought for my truth. And I refused to be broken. I've always believed that love is worth fighting for. But I also know that sometimes, love means walking away. It means setting boundaries. It means protecting yourself. I've learned to trust my instincts, to listen to my gut, and to never let anyone make me feel small again. I sat on my porch one evening, watching the sunset. Lily was inside, cooking dinner. I could hear her humming, a happy, contented sound. I smiled. Mark came out and sat beside me. He took my hand. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Everything," I said. "How far we've come." He nodded. "We've been through a lot," he said. "But we made it." "We did," I said. "And we're stronger because of it." We sat in silence, watching the sky turn shades of orange and pink. It was a beautiful evening. A beautiful life. I was grateful for every single moment. I'd found my purpose. I'd found my voice. And I'd used it to help others. I was proud of who I'd become. I was proud of the life I'd built. And I knew that whatever happened next, I'd be okay. The house is still ours. It's become a haven, a safe place where our family can grow and thrive. We've filled it with love, laughter, and memories. It's our sanctuary. I still think about Eleanor sometimes, about the woman she could have been if she'd chosen love instead of control. I feel sorry for her. She missed out on so much. But she chose her own path. She chose to be bitter and alone. And she paid the price. I've forgiven her. I've moved on. And I've built a life that's full of joy. If you're going through something similar, I want you to know that you're not alone. There's always a way out. There's always a way to fight back. And there's always a way to find peace. I'm stronger now. I'm wiser. I'm ready for whatever comes next. I'm living my life on my own terms. I'm grateful for every single day. And I know that I'll always be okay. If you've ever had to stand up to someone who underestimated your worth, drop a comment below and tell us what happened. Subscribe to Calm Drama Stories for more tales of family secrets and stunning revenge. Thank you for watching.